inclusive. So where the polymer substrates can have the tactility in the form of tactile marks, very inclusive parts of security of the banknote, but also this beautiful colors kinogram in the window of the banknote. Bank of England has recently, as you probably all know, announced the new family, which the process for choosing the themes of which has started. So they have basically asked the public to contribute towards choosing, well, not choosing, but actually presenting some designs. And interestingly and very encouragingly, a lot of young people responded to that call. Going to Canada with this absolutely stunningly beautiful banknote, the Viola Desmond $10 banknote, Canadian banknote. This is the first note of the current or latest currency family in Canada. It was issued by the Bank of Canada, and it's one of the most significant modern Canadian banknotes, both historically and artistically. It's a powerful symbol of racial equality, courage, and Canadian diversity. And it also marks the first time a Canadian woman features alone on a circulating Canadian banknote. What's striking is this vertical design on a polymer substrate with even more striking curved security features here, because you see a metallic kinogram also in vertical design. Going to New Zealand, again, different parts of the world, where this $50 note symbolizes Maori cultural renewal, but also the protection of New Zealand's natural environment. This bird series celebrates biodiversity, showcasing endemic birds. Going to Australia, Australian currency also celebrates different things, but it celebrates indigenous innovation and women's leadership by depicting David Unipen's portrait on the front and Edith Cowan on the back. But striking design storytelling through these security features creates a visual of an endemic black swan, showcasing security, beauty, and nature diversity. And now we're going back to Europe, to Switzerland. So the National Bank of Switzerland is very different. They do not celebrate famous people on their banknotes. Instead, they celebrate Swiss core values and strengths. They are modern, artistic, and highly technical. Swiss banknotes celebrate precision, creativity, nature, science, and cultural diversity through themed designs rather than the portraits. So the Swiss National Bank has recently announced the theme for the new series called Switzerland and its Altitudes. 12 designs were shortlisted from many after an online public consultation to rate the designs. Interestingly, more than 100,000 people responded to this call. Very encouraging for the interest in cash. So this is just one of the 12 designs that was shortlisted. Again, very, very beautiful depiction of the subject matter given. And the euro, a supranational symbol of unity and diversity. The euro's imagery avoids national monuments. Instead, it features fictional bridges, windows, the windows that symbolize cooperation and openness across Europe. But integration of the EU alphabets, for example, reinforces this principle of unity through diversity. Will the new series of the euro depict personalities and themes that marked Europe's history as a testament how the Union has evolved and transcended national sentiments, ready to accept the common reference? Well, we shall have to wait and see. Euro, of course, alongside the dollar, is balancing this national pride and global interdependence, both currencies carrying soft power as well. And now this really interesting, very massive banknote from UAE. Their currency designs are they're meant to connect, basically, the country's roots with the modern achievements. The symbolism that acts both as currency, but also as national branding artifacts. Security features chosen are features of today, with technical sophistication through to seamless integration into banknote narrative, adding another layer of security for their banknotes. Algeria's 2000 dinar banknote was issued to mark 60th anniversary of Algeria's independence. This Durasafe substrate here, the window on the substrate reflects the shape of Algeria, and by depicting the powerful national symbols well known to the people of Algeria, celebrates Algeria's independence, pride, and heritage, showcasing a fine design integration and currency security features alongside it. So here we are, the depiction of banknotes in this very short presentation includes currencies that carry Kurtz's security features, and in that they are very special to us. But this is not to say that all of the world currencies, and there are so many, and they're all absolutely beautiful, and they all are unique, and each of their countries choose their designs very, very carefully to reflect that uniqueness and national identities. So as banknote stories evolve, so do the substrates and security features that support them. So modern banknote security features are part of storytelling. They're not as they used to be, or perhaps that we saw on some of the banknotes here, they're not a standalone feature any longer. They have become a fully integrated part of the banknote narrative. So here on this slide, you will see it's an example of a Curtis registered security thread. So we believe that it offers even greater and better integration for the print design, because this is made possible by registering the different thread colors to the fixed positions. So you can get that seamless story throughout in exactly the position that you want. So through this integration and security and design elements, we believe that Curtis foils and threads are a perfect vehicle to carry messages while ensuring the maximum banknote security. So, looking ahead, and we heard about it a lot in the past presentations, very interesting, and we know we're all incredibly passionate. We heard beautiful presentations and passion from Bank of Namibia and South Africa. Absolutely wonderful to listen to it. But as we all acknowledge here, we cannot ignore that across many economies, digital transactions are fast overtaking cash payments. And central bank digital currencies are making a steady entry, slowly rewriting the story of money. So from Bitcoin to CBDCs, this shift transforms the money into programmable trust, changing perhaps how societies perceive ownership, inclusion, and sovereignty. So through the gold-backed currencies like Zimbabwe's ZiG and the planned digital currencies, the countries seek legitimacy through innovation and transparency. But are we ready anytime soon to give up the one national symbol that's not only a payment instrument, but a tangible, even emotional connection to our roots, past and present? And the future? Coexistence for the foreseeable future? Yes, I think that is the general consensus of that, yes. Global money, perhaps? Global money in the shape of a globally connected digital system, more likely, with individual currencies circulating alongside it. Now, that's a food for thought. Let's see. Time will tell. But with this, and with this thought, I thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this little journey into our beautiful banknotes of the world. And I wish you a fantastic and very successful conference here in Accra. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Very interesting indeed, and ties well to the importance with design and how it integrates into a culture. Next up, we have Pascal with SICPA. Here you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm extremely pleased and happy to be here today. As a Swiss and chocolate lover, I know where my chocolate comes from. So I want to show respect and gratitude to the cocoa farmers of Ghana. We tend to forget that we add the milk, but something comes from Africa, and we love it. I'm a researcher at SICPA, and I focus on what happens to cash once it's been produced, and it leaves the central bank, and it reaches societies and cultures. And I'm very curious to understand how it coexists. It's existing in different contexts around the world, and what has changed since the COVID pandemic. Of course, many people in Europe don't know, but this region of the world is probably one of the most interesting in terms of payment and finance innovation, and it's extremely interesting, and I'm very curious to learn more about Ghana while I'm here. Like the lady said this morning, what I do is very much being in this mental stage of curiosity, taking the time to pause and have the imagination to make sense of what's happening around the world. And I've been to many currency conferences around the world, and we tend to focus very much on Europe, the West, and we tend to forget the rest of the world. And we focus very much on urban context of use of cash, and I try to look what's happening elsewhere, and that's what I want to a bit introduce you in my research today. We've developed different models. I want to share them with you and see what does cash mean today in a fast digital evolving society. First, we tend to focus very much on the tip of the iceberg, the visible layer of cash use, which is the point of sale behaviors, everything that happens with merchants when we pay. And the more digital systems globally erode the amount of cash that is used at the point of sales, we tend to see the social role of cash that keeps growing. And it's very much about personal and family use, a lot of resilience, a lot of solidarity, a lot of rotational saving associations around the world. I think around here you call it susu or osusu. Europeans, most of them don't know what that is. And of course, a lot of cultural and community-driven usage, and of course what we call the informal economy, which tends to be this catch-all term where everything that doesn't happen at the point of sale in cash, we call it informal. Also, there are different types of cashless transitions around the world. They're not all the same. You can have a telco-led cashless transition, and then cash will play a very different role. You can have fintech-led cashless transitions. You can have state-led, very different, and bank-led cashless transitions. And in each context, cash will have a very different type of behavior and will adapt differently to the context. So I like to say that most fintech and mobile money systems don't always talk to each other, but they all speak cash. And cash remains this globally most interoperable payment layer. You can cash out, put cash in somewhere else, and that's very important about cash. Now, in Europe, we tend to think cash versus cards or cash versus Visa and MasterCard, but the reality is much more layered, much more complex. In a lot of places around the world, you will see cash in local currencies, you will see a lot of remittances, you will see a lot of dollarizations or hard currencies, you will see a lot of mobile money, e-wallets, you will see a lot of merry-go-rounds, like I said, Susu, Hawala networks, very poorly understood in the West. You will see crypto, stable coins, and you will see a lot of prepaid and multi-currency payment cards. We're carefully examining and trying to look at the adoption of CBDC. It's very new, and I think adoption is the key here. How will users around the world see the value for CBDC? How will CBDC enter this kind of multi-layered system of payment? Big questions for the future. So money is really not one system, but very layered, uneven stratigraphy of payment system, and people really survive by moving between them. People don't subscribe to one payment. They move and shift between payment systems. Now, if we look at Kenya, these are our estimates, but we know that about 59%, about 2/3 of the Kenyan GDP transit through M-Pesa. But yet, out of all these transactions, 1/3, one transaction every 3 transactions implicates cash, cash in or cash out. So we really see that cash is this underneath infrastructure that other payment systems are built on top. And it's very important from a policy perspective to understand this entanglement. So when you make one change on one side, you have to understand what changes on the other side. So cash is really this tangible and reliable infrastructure that holds everything together. We want all digital innovation, we want this complementarity, but we should always remember that we shouldn't weaken the underlying infrastructure. We see that a lot of cash behaviors, a lot of cash transactions escape the normal visibility of formal system. I call them peer-to-peer shadow cash loops. A lot of activity escapes the central bank. And we talked about South Africa. There's a lot of cash that is taken from grocery stores, small shop owners. All across West Africa, you see street vendors selling cash, and this is very different. This is a completely new paradigm to make sense of. And the more I hear about hoarding, people hoard cash, the more we see that it's actually not this static idea that cash is stuck somewhere. It's actually very dynamic, moving really fast, but completely outside the reach and the visibility of central banks. And more we see that mobile money may move fast, fintech moves fast, but it still relies on cash at the edges. When the network is down, when the infrastructure cannot be there, cash is the alternative. So we tend to apply card payment mentalities, banking mentalities to kinship-based liquidity systems, to very informal societies. And often what looks like hoarding is just shadow liquidity spinning really fast locally and escaping the visibility of the central bank. About 52% of phones, mobile phones in Africa are still feature phones. We should remember that. And in many places of the world, cash still looks like that. It's very different from my experience in Europe. The way I like to pitch cash to younger people, and I think that in Europe we need to get them to adopt more cash, is that cash is the world's most reliable universal basic service. It's given by the central bank to the people to trade and exchange value. It's extremely portable. It's peer-to-peer. There's no intermediaries. It works offline. We tend to forget how good that feature is, maybe our best features. It respects your privacy. No conditions. You don't have to click I agree and sign up. There will never be any fees. You spend less. You're more in control. There is the pain of payment. You have instant availability, no download, no update, no password. You have your money, it's yours. It's super complementary with technology, and it's safe and reliable because it's backed by a central bank. So it's really this universal peer-to-peer, offline, anonymous way of storing and exchanging value. And we see that when we use the language of fintech to pitch the value of cash, I get the Gen Z eyes to open wide and say, wow, this is so cool. I forgot about that. And I think that's how we should talk about cash. So modernizing is not the same as substitution. The more digital systems become, the more they rely on cash at the edges. And agent networks, informal markets, the last mile, in some places they talk about the last yard. So it's really getting precise. Infrastructure, coverage, trust can fail, and you need cash. So removing cash too quickly doesn't accelerate sometimes progress, it just increases the fragility of systems, of payment systems. So with this research at SIGBA, we really invite policymakers, researchers, and innovators to explore with curiosity how cash circulates through everyday life, and in this very hybrid, multi-layered financial systems. And it's only through this system that we can maintain this balance between cash and other systems. And like I like to say, with cash, no one is left behind. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Pascal. Great presentation. With that, I'd like to invite the panelists up for our next panel. If you could please make your way to the stage. Come on up. Grab a seat. While they're making their way up, we do want this to be a discussion. So if any of you do have thoughts or questions, if you haven't already done so, you can log into Slido. You saw the slido.com note on the polls that were up earlier, or again through our app, you can get onto Slido that way. Please, if you could have a seat as close to the order of your names as possible, that would be great. Thank you. He's coming up. I think I saw him over there. Yep. Come on up. We have another microphone. We're good. All right.
Yeah. So
Welcome,
nice.
everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning, or getting into the afternoon. We had a great conversation this morning, which I think really led us into the topics of stability and what's going on in the economy in Ghana, and how the CEDI is so important to protecting against volatility and what can be done with that. So this panel's all about discussing navigating volatility and recovery. So I don't want to waste any more time. I'd like everybody to introduce themselves. We have a great panel of experts to talk through this. So we'll go right down the line, and Ibo, I might start with you.
Okay, hi. So good afternoon. I'm Ebo Texin. I'm an associate professor of economics at the Department of Economics and external member of the Monetary Policy Committee here.
Great.
Yes.
And do you have as we go down the line, maybe an opening thought on the importance of the CEDI in guarding against volatility?
Yeah, I think that the importance of stabilizing the Ghana CEDI has clearly come to bear on the macro indicators that we find now. We've seen some stability now, and the fact that inflation has declined to single digits, even beyond expectations of the central bank, has been as a result of the appreciation that we've seen in the city. Not only has it reduced our debt and sent our nominal debt to about 45% of GDP, but it has also ensured that it's moderated the exchange rate pass-through to inflation to the extent that inflation has declined to 8% just about 10 months after it was over 23%. And I think that monetary policy and the tight fiscal consolidation by the the Treasury has played a greater role in this. And I think that the central bank's commitment in keeping to its mandate of ensuring price stability has played a greater role. Not only has the central bank, through its monetary policy committee, maintained a tight monetary policy stance, and also ensured that it has used its tools like the open market operations to mop up liquidity in the system, as well as also build its reserves through the domestic gold purchase program, where Ghana keeps some reserves in gold. And this has allowed the central bank to build reserves, as we speak, to almost 4.8 months of import cover. Reserves that were somewhere less than a month, about 2-3 years ago. And this has enabled the bank to offer the support that the market needs. I mean, in times when the pipeline demand for forex increases. So not directly to intervene to keep the exchange rate at a point, but to ensure that the volatilities that come with the sharp depreciation and so on and so forth are corrected by market support. In any case, whatever reserves the central bank builds is partly from exports. Receipts. So there's nothing wrong if the central bank goes in to support the market when there's the need to reduce the volatilities in the exchange rate. And all of this has played together to enable Ghana to maintain a particular level of policy coordination between the central bank and the fiscal authorities. And so as we speak now, we see that monetary policy, fiscal policy coordination, and trying to support the stability that we find now. So as we speak, I mean, almost everything looks good. It's just that it's a little bit fragile. We need to be consistent in policy to maintain that stability over a period of time so that we build the resilience that we need as an economy to be able to withstand the shocks when they come in.
Okay. Yeah. Great. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. We'll get to some more detailed questions on that as we go along. Yeah. But with that, Godfred, maybe over to you for a little introduction and your thoughts on the CEDI and its role in stability.
Okay. My name is Jamal Eddin from the West African Institute for Financial and Economics Management, Lagos. So I will maybe take the historical perspective of what is happening not only with CEDI but most of the currencies within the English-speaking West African countries, namely Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and then the Gambia. We all know what happened during COVID-19 pandemic when economies around the world were locked down. Aggregate demand was down, and then there was this need for government across all levels to stimulate the economy. And then the fiscal authority came up with a lot of stimulus aimed at boosting the purchasing power of the economies. Yeah, that's happened across all economies, including ours. Where we got it wrong then was, so like by the year 2020, the fiscal deficit for a country like Ghana went around 15%. For Nigeria was 6%. For Liberia, around 6% as well, and all the countries in the sub-region. So that is not an issue as well. Where we got it wrong was the monetization of that deficit by central banks. That is consistent across all countries. So that's where the crisis starts. The other specific issues for the economies, like if you take Nigeria, there were a lot of subsidy thing that takes a lot of fiscal space. And also the rigid peg where Central Bank of Nigeria trying to defend the naira. So we blow a lot of reserve, more than 15 billion to just try and defend the naira. And then for Ghana, we know the exposure on external debt, the high cost of debt servicing. So if you take all these things, and then we saw the debt crisis that happens by the end of 2022. And then if you go to Sierra Leone, they had serious external sector imbalances where the commodity export crashed, then very high import bills with very little reserve to, so it becomes a problem with them. For Gambia, which is a small tourist country, the COVID-19, there were lockdowns, so tourists are no longer coming, and then they cannot export the normal commodities they are exporting. So it's like a problem for all economies. But that monetization of the deficit by central banks in the sub-region led to three things. One, inflation spiral. Inflation went up to 54 in Ghana, in Nigeria to 28.5, in Sierra Leone it went up, all countries. And now that followed by currency depreciation. So CEDI depreciated to I think around 16 naira. Even with the rigid peg, it had to go up to around 600 per dollar, and then with all currencies in the sub-region. Now, so what with that, then I think IMF came on board. That's around 2023. Of course, for all countries, 4 of 5, IMF came with the extended credit facility. With that, when IMF are there, so you have to obey some certain rules. The fiscal deficit, the tighter monetary policy to fight the inflation and bring more capital. So all this happened, and that's where we are now. I think CEDI has done quite very well with the strong appreciation, cautious appreciation, and then Naira also has appreciated year on year by 13%. Liberian dollar has also appreciated. So I think if you take this, I think there is a little stability in the sub-region, but not a soft landing. So more needs to be done. Thank you so much.
Okay, no, thank you. Again, a lot of great points in there. We do want to give Jamaluddin a chance to say a few words, introduce yourself, and then your thoughts maybe on the more regional considerations of currencies and the importance and stability and what you're seeing throughout the region.
Okay, thank you. My name is Godfrey Alufa Bokme. I'm a people teacher from the University of Ghana, Legon. So, yes, of course, I mean, currency and our currency, like many currencies over the world, is a symbol of sovereignty as well. We believe in our currency. We've seen the ups and downs with the currency. Sometimes, if you look at the data, you would think that the CEDI ushered inflation to Ghana. Right, because before the introduction of the local currency, inflation largely was less than 1%. In fact, inflation in 1964 was 0.98%. We introduced the CEDI July 1965. By the end of 1965, inflation had moved to 26.4%. And since then, Ghana has never known low inflation for long. Right, but that doesn't mean that the problem is largely the CEDI, but I think the problem has to do more with the fiscal side, and that is consistent with the point that he made and all of that. So, and essentially, that is where the source of the instability also comes from. And so we have not, and like many other countries in Africa, we've not benefited optimally from the complementarity role between monetary and physical, especially in creating job-rich growth. And therefore, because the fiscal side tends to misbehave, and if you look at Ghana, for instance, since independence, we have run average fiscal deficit of about 6.8%. That's quite high. And because of that, that undermines the ability of the central bank to deploy monetary policy effectively, to bring down inflation and engineer growth. Even this is across different monetary policy framework that we have used. And even now that we talk about inflation targeting, of course, the effectiveness of inflation targeting, the key requirement is actually outside the central bank. For inflation targeting to be more effective, you need fiscal discipline, which is outside the central bank. So once the fiscal side usually tends to misbehave, then we tend to deploy monetary policy as subordinate to fiscal side, more or less a master-servant relationship where the fiscal is the master and the monetary is the servant and all of that. But I think that we've seen how this also changes under different programs that we've had with the IMF and the World Bank and all of that. So we have come a long way, and I believe that we can learn our lessons in the last 60 years so that we can do better going forward. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I do want to, we have some other thoughts on different topics, but I thought maybe we'll stick with you for a second and see who else has some comments on this. But there was a question that came in about major challenges of introducing a common currency zone. So maybe even that in the context of stability, and would a common currency zone lead to more stability? What are the challenges, and just your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we've had our own fair share of the idea of having a common currency even within the eco zone and all of that. The challenge typically will come to how we manage the fiscal side, because the rationalized macroeconomic convergence, member countries have struggled to achieve that and all of that. And the important question is whether a common currency really is the call is coming from underlying economic factors, because if you look at intra-regional trade, we are not doing as much as other continents are doing and all of that. There's great lack of fiscal connectivity among member countries. So the question is, what do you need a common currency for? Is it for tourism or to drive intra-regional trade, given the lack of fiscal connectivity? If you look at it across African countries or even West African countries, our trade exposure is more towards countries outside the continent rather than within the continent. All of these things create challenges for the idea to drive a common currency. And then again, there are differences when it comes to maybe how we manage our economies. There is the Francophone zone, then we also have who have their own independent currencies and stuff like that. But the important thing is, are we willing to pay the price of having a common currency where we entrench fiscal discipline across member countries, which is quite fundamental for a common currency to operate, and the extent to which we can have monetary cooperation and all of that. But I think the underlying drive in terms of transactions, trade, volume, economic drivers and all of that is quite low now. Perhaps now that we are talking about African continental free trade and all of that, probably the need to have a common currency will be on the front burner.
Okay, great. I don't know do either of you have a thought on that question, or not really? A common currency zone, thoughts?
I've had this impression that this issue about a common currency in West Africa might not materialize after over 2 decades of an attempt to come up with a common currency. One, because most of these 5 countries are exporting commodities, and because of our similarities in our comparative advantage, there's not much trade that takes place between us. And therefore, normally currencies come up when trade is booming between countries. And so we cannot force a common currency when there's not much trade among the 5 countries. What we need to do rather is to see how best we can add value along the value chain so that we can begin to export simple manufactures. And if we get to that point, then we'll see some increase in trade taking place within a sub-region. And the traders themselves would, through their activities, make it necessary for a common currency. I mean, we've tried to meet the convergence criteria. As we speak, for Ghana now, we've met almost all, apart from a fiscal deficit of less than, I think, 3%. And we've not been able to achieve that. And for me, I think that we should concentrate more at reducing the cost of doing trade within the sub-region. We need to improve on infrastructure, trade logistics, so that if we begin to see some increase in trade within the sub-region, I think that common currency will call for the need for countries to come up with something of that sort. But I don't foresee a common currency coming up anytime soon.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And then maybe, Professor Bafkin, there's a question there for you that just disappeared, but it was essentially what prevents the monetary policy authorities and the fiscal policy authorities from working together? How can they work closer together, the different authorities? Any thoughts? You want?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, take it.
Well, I can use Ghana's experience. Of course, it's not so different across a lot of African countries because the fiscal side is very dominant. And oftentimes, the fiscal side resides in the hands of politicians. Okay, so where they think that when you win power, you've won knowledge, you've won wisdom, you can just do anything at all, and expect that the monetary side will also cooperate with you. So that is the challenge. So you will find that across a lot of African countries, technocrats, there are very qualified, competent people who drive their central banks, and they know what they are doing. But the reality also is that the ability of the central bank to function effectively in bringing down inflation and engineer growth, you have to look at the other side. It's almost like chasing the rabbit in the forest where there's the lion. So once you chase the rabbit, you have to keep an eye on the lion, right? So that's what constrains us and all of that. So we haven't seen that kind of complementarity rule, but what we've seen more is a kind of a subordination or master-servant relation. So to that extent, countries on the continent that have independent monetary authority or have monetary authority on their own have not been able to deploy this effectively to engineer additional growth, right, or essentially create job-rich growth. How do we go forward? If I take Ghana, for instance, and across all the 17 IMF-supported programs, you will find that there's always an intervention in all these programs trying to manage the relationship between the fiscal side and then the monetary side. So, for instance, what we were contended with just 2 years ago, we had a similar challenge from 2012 through to 2015, which occasioned the 16th IMF supported program. And one of the program objectives was to eliminate the fiscal dominance of monetary policy. Okay, so we did that over 3 years. We had just 2.5 years to mess that up. Then we went into our recent program. We call it the 17th IMF supported program. That was incidentally approved also on May 17th, right, for us by the IMF. And one key objective of that program as well is eliminating fiscal dominance of monetary policy, do away with budget financing from the central bank or resort to zero financing. So we have reviewed our fiscal framework. We have amended the Fiscal Public Financial Management Act. We have an undertaking with the IMF to keep to zero financing of the budget, even though within the Bank of Ghana Act we could finance up to 5% of previous year's fiscal revenue and all of that. Typically, given the structural challenges we have, the huge fiscal infrastructure deficit, a 5% deficit financing, if it goes to the productive sectors of the economy, it shouldn't create a problem, right? But the problem is the abuse, especially when the fiscal side tends to be in a certain direction, contrary to how we want it to go. But I believe that my understanding is that 60 years we have enough data to be able to learn from this and do better going forward. And I'm hoping that the fiscal side will be more responsible. This way, it gives comfort for the monetary side to also deploy monetary policy effectively and then engineer growth. Thank you.
Great, it's a good challenge there. Any other thoughts on that topic? Yep.
Okay, I think for me, it's just to redefine the status quo. So that's what I see. Now, if you look at Ghana is an inflation targeting central country. The Bank of Ghana is an inflation targeting bank. So if you take Fed or Bank of England, normally the fiscal authority defines the monetary policy objective. That is the inflation objective. So once you have the maybe Minister of Finance telling the inflation objective, now you have the Parliament or the legislatives that will hold the central bank accountable on that inflation objective. And then the central bank gets an independent operational autonomy to pursue its own policy. So you will see this will be the top level of coordination, and then you will not see that fiscal slippage coming again. I mean, so the budget will be in line with the inflation objective that is set by the Ministry of Finance itself. And then the central bank is free now to respond to using its own policy toolkits to ensure that that inflation objective has been achieved. I think that's what is attainable in the US, UK, and elsewhere. So we have to, beyond telling the moral suasion, we are, engaging the finance guys, trying to make them prudent on their spending, or central bank cutting different, right? So let us redefine the entire relationship between the three arms, not arms of government, between the fiscal side, the monetary side, and then the legislatives who will hold the central bank accountable. So I think that will, to a large extent, address the issue of the fiscal dominance. Thank you.
Okay, great. Maybe we'll transition a little bit to the future and look at the digital side of things and the ECD. I'm curious, the first question there on the screen is talking about, do you think at some point there's the possibility of currency notes being taken away completely? I'd say there's that question, but also, we heard earlier, and we know Ghana's doing a great job working on the ECD. And how do you think digital innovation can support monetary stability and inclusion as we go forward? So kind of two questions. One, the stability angle of moving to a more inclusive ECD digital future, as well as, does that mean notes are going to go away?
Okay, I think that if we look at the piloting of the ECD and other digital currencies, it has implications for monetary stability and then financial inclusion, in the sense that it improves the policy transmission and precision, because it gives monetary policy direct access and more targeted implementation of the policy, rate decisions to transmit to the market. It also allows for enhanced financial oversight and resilience. So you can trace the trail, with e-currencies, and therefore it allows the central bank to be able to have that financial oversight. It does also enable us to also, as a country, to manage the external pressures from alternative assets like bitcoins and so on and so forth. So you provide an ECD as an alternative to that, so that those external pressures that could come from bitcoins and other things, we try to bring that to very low level. And then it also gives access to the bank public to use digital technology to have some banking, services. And also, so in all of this, what we need to do to enhance financial deepening and financial inclusion is to ensure that we promote financial literacy, so that people get to know about the need to also go digital with their finances. And I think that should work out in trying to provide some support for monetary stability and then financial inclusion. Yeah.
Okay, great. Other thoughts on this one? Going down the line.
Okay, I think one area is on the issue of monetary policy transmission mechanism. So once you have with the large informal economy, so with the coming of ECD on board, I think that will help greatly in is improving the way monetary policy transmits to the economy, and that will make the Bank of Ghana's policy much more effective, taking a bunch of data, that informal side. And then secondly, so this issue of the ECD will now improve the data availability for real-time decision making, where the Bank of Ghana can utilize the use of this artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning to see how they can make their policy more effective, which, with the heavy fiat money or other forms of money, that will be a little bit difficult. I think that will greatly improve the policy making process of the Bank of Ghana.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, so we're coming down to time. There's a lot of other questions up there. Maybe we quickly have time for the top one there. If you think about the condition of physical notes and how they get worn over time or crumpled, does that have any effect on confidence or economic stability? You're nodding vigorously. I'll go.
Yes, it does. The fiscal condition of the note does, in terms of how people can relate to that. And also, again, the footprint of the central bank in the environment as well is also very important. If the longevity is very short, just because it crumbles very easily, in addition to the fact that this imposes cost on the central bank in terms of replacing, it also undermines the confidence of people in that note. I believe that may also explain the reason other central banks are switching to, let's say, polymer, right? Because its longevity is very high compared to the paper note and the rest of that. And then the environmental footprint is also quite better, consistent with the energy transition and all of that. But I also do know that given the huge informal sector, people really just don't handle the currency well. They think that the currency is their property. They don't know that it's the property of the central bank, right? So they can just handle it anyhow because they believe that they got this money. Unfortunately for them, they don't know that it's the value of that currency that belongs to them and not that note, because that note doesn't have their signature on it.
Okay, terrific. With that, I'm going to come to one last question for everybody, a short one, because we're running out of time. But if you have one thing, one recommendation to strengthen confidence and resilience in the CEDI, what would that be? Just like one thing for this room of policymakers and central bankers that could apply to their own currency as well.
I think that we need to structurally transform our economy. I mean, the sort of stability we find here is because of policy, but we need to look at underlying causes for the depreciation that we've seen over the years. And if we need people to have confidence in the city, we need to stabilize the city. And so we should move beyond the current policy of trying to maintain the city stability to look at where the increased demand for forex comes from. It's because we become import dependent. And so we need to diversify our production base, our export base, so that we produce import substitutes to reduce our dependence on imports, as well as move away from commodity dependence in terms of our exports to our value addition, especially in the largest monetary, trade union that we have, the AFTA, so that we are not only relying on gold and cocoa, but we move into our value addition. It's important that we look at support for certain winning sectors like agro-processing and also light manufacturing. These are sectors that offer labor-intensive economic activities to employ the youth that we have who are looking for jobs that are non-existent. And if we're able to transform our economy, it would assure some stability of the city, and it would get Ghanaians to gain confidence in the city, as the president indicated this morning.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think for my advice will be building institutional credibility. First, with true independence of central bank, to have an enforced fiscal rule, and then effective communication by the Bank of Ghana, and then transparency. And then the bank also needs to create this psychology of stability. We know what happened. I think the CEDI was up, appreciated, and it went down. So that is not a good way to go. So that psychology of stability has to be created such that even if there is a drift, it will not be from the policy side. I mean, look at what is happening in the US. Inflation has been above the target for a very long time, but if you look at the inflation expectation, it's well anchored because they know that the FOMC at any time they utilize that instrument to ensure that the inflation is on target. So I think this issue of policy consistency need to be well taken. It's a good factor that the bank should look at. So I think that's
perfect. Thank you. Last thoughts.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I think that Ghanaians answered this question long ago. There is a saying in Ghana, regardless of the programs people did, even those who haven't gone to school to high level, that if the fundamentals are weak, you see the way they will finish the statement, right? So, so Ghanaians know very well that if you are in doubt, you want to look at the fundamentals. So a good way to anchor the stability of the city is to go back to the fundamentals. And the fundamentals, my colleagues have spoken about that. We can talk about maybe the real sector, economic transformation, both from the perspective of structural transformation and productivity transformation is very key. Very key. And then public finance in terms of fiscal discipline and all of that. I think if we're able to improve the fundamentals, the way Ghanaians know it, and they've come to understand it, the CEDI will take care of itself. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Round of applause for the whole panel, please. Thank you all. All right. Thank you. All right. Up next, thank you very much. Up next, we have 2 more innovation sessions. And first up, I'd like to invite Barna with Jura to the stage to talk about what's new in their world. Barna?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to be here. First of all, thank you for the National Bank of Ghana, His Excellencies, that we have the honor to have a presentation here. Thank you very much again, and congratulations for the 60th anniversary. Because the time is short, and I know that you are just before lunch, I'm not going to just say more. I'm going to go directly to my presentation. So what is my presentation about? Certainly banknote authentication and artificial intelligence. So let me put a first and a very simple question. Do you authenticate your banknote? Don't tell me, just think it about yourself. So if you take the banknote and you pay and you use it, before you use it, do you authenticate it or not? Certainly I'm 100% sure that some people, they say, no, I don't, I just use it and I give it and that's it. And some people might say that, yes, I do it, and I know because I know this and that security feature. So I put on the screen some banknotes, and some of them you might know, some of them you don't know. But for example, if I take the upper left corner, do you know that banknote? Do you know if it's an original one, or it's only a fake one, or it's house note, or I don't know? Certainly I'm 100% sure that you know on the bottom right, because that's why you know. So what do we do with the banknotes? Do we authenticate or not? Do we know the security features or not? So basically this is the topic that I'm going to try to talk a little bit about. Certainly you know these steps, because in the everyday life you take the banknote, you pay, you use it, and you have it. So what do we do with the banknotes? Certainly first time when you get the new banknotes in your hand, you are going to learn them. So basically, you are going to have the first impression, you will hear it, you will see the features, you will see certain things. Without knowing it, you are going to learn it, and from that moment you are going to have a stamp in your head, and based on that you are going to authenticate the banknote. You wish it or not, but you do that. So basically the answer to the question is that yes, we authenticate the banknote. So this is the first step. So now the next step, if you have to enlist security features, don't tell me, just think it about them. How many of them you can enlist in your head? How many security features you know? Certainly I can hear that some people, they say, yes, I know the watermark. Yes, I know the security thread. Yes, I know this or that. That's perfect. So the question is that, can you differentiate the fake one from the original one? And then you will see that this question is going to make some questions come up that yes, I do it or I don't do it. So based on these ideas, we had the project back in 2012 with the Hungarian National Bank. And basically the Hungarian National Bank came to us and said, guys, I have a lot of, not a lot, but I have some forged banknotes because the forgery is very low. But I have some forged banknotes. And based on our research, people don't know that much about the security features, but I want to support them somehow to authenticate it. Okay? Nevertheless, it's very important to emphasize, I am not talking against other security features. I'm talking parallel to those ones, because we never use one security feature, we use a group of security features, and that's how we authenticate the banknotes. So what has happened? So they made the research and they were talking about different security features. People went into the research and they were saying, okay, I know 3 security features, I know watermark, I know security thread, and I know, I don't know, an optical device. And then they gave the banknotes and they said, okay, please identify them and please tell me which one is original and which one is the fake. And just a very short example regarding the watermark, they gave the banknote, the client took the banknote, put it on the table and was looking to the banknote and was searching for the watermark and did not find it. So that's how, the question is, how much do we know that? So based on that, the National Bank proposed that let's put together some kind of application to identify the banknotes and authenticate the banknotes. Not only identifying, but also authenticating the banknotes. Just for you to see, without saying anything, I put up on this screen some pictures. As you see, there are different ones. Certainly, some of them are forgeries, some of them are originals. I'm not saying anything which one is original and which one is the fake one. Just I let you look at them and be able to identify. Could you identify which one is fake and which one is the original? So I put a frame around them. And now if you look at the frame, the red ones certainly are the forged ones, and the green ones are the original ones. There are different qualities, higher and lower quality. I put some more. Just if you look to these banknotes, these are banknotes, original and fake ones, certainly in details. So you see that there are very small details. If you look to the portrait, the thickness of the lines that you should have there is the thickness of a hairline. We say numbers, we say 50 micron, 80 micron, but the thickness of the lines are around the thickness of the hairline. So which are the original and which one is the fake ones? And there is the frame around them. And you see, intentionally I mix them because then it's more difficult. For the experts who are working every day with designing banknotes and putting together security documents, with a simple magnifying glass, they can differentiate the high security or the security print from the commercial print or the forgeries. So what we did, having this knowledge, in 2012 we started a project, and the project was that we have to be able to authenticate the banknotes with a mobile application. On that time, the AI was nowhere. On that time, the AI was not fancy. But we knew that what we see with the magnifying glass, if we merge them together, we have to be able to differentiate the original from the fake one. Then we started this whole process. We made an application, and we could differentiate to a certain extent. Okay? Then years later, actually 3-4 years ago, we were pushed up by central bank that AI, and we have to use them. So basically, based on that, we used the AI, we put together, we improved the first version, and what we do now, we just have a very simple, be that iPhone or Android. We take the phone, we get on the top of the banknote, identifies the denomination, so you don't have to know which denomination is that, identifies the denomination and authenticates it. I put those frames because we are not checking the full banknote. Certainly we can differentiate different areas, but in the case of the Hungarian banknote, we are checking the middle of the banknote. Okay? And I put here together some kind of results just for you to see what is the result. At the bottom you see the original and the forged banknotes that we checked with different phones, with different versions and these kind of things. And the outcome is what you can see on the screen. You see what is very important in the case of the originals, that none of the original was identified as a forgery, and none of the forgeries were identified as fake, as original ones. Now, and there is one more important, that in the case of originals, it was easy if it's a full, we are talking only about full banknotes, not parts of the banknotes. If it's a full banknote, we can identify its original or forged one. But in the case of the forged one, you can see that there is 7.8%, which we could not identify. Why? Because it was either parts missing or it was too dirty, okay? I mean really too dirty, or it was a kind of movie note. It was not the original note. But the message is here that today, with the help of the AI, there are applications that can identify and authenticate the banknotes. Very important. I'm not naive. I know exactly that I cannot imagine that somebody goes to the shop and before he wants to pay is going to take the phone and is going to identify the notes. No. And I'm sure that when you get back the money, you are not going to do the same. And here I go back to my first sentence. Do we identify your banknotes or not? When you identify your banknote at the beginning, when you get in your hand, you are going to get the message. If something is strange, you feel that something is not okay, that is the moment when, if you don't know the features, you don't know how and what to identify or authenticate, then it's good to have a tool that helps you to identify or to authenticate the tool. Public is always important. So we put together 3 areas which are important from the public point of view. Certainly, how much the public knows about the security features. The more we use digital tools, the less we know about the banknotes. So that's why these kind of tools will support you. In 2000, there was a small movie asking, do you need mobile phone? And well, quite a lot of people said no. I'm asking today, is there anybody in this room who doesn't have a mobile phone in his pocket? Today we cannot live without mobile phone. So the mobile phone is going to be the tool for us to identify and authenticate the banknotes. Certainly how user-friendly is or how easy to use it. It's user-friendly, it's easy to use it. So you don't have to learn anything. You just take the mobile phone, put on the top of the banknote, and it's going to identify and authenticate the banknotes. And last but not least, certainly, what is the expectation of the public? What do you want from this application? The only thing that I want, if I'm in trouble, he should help me. If I go to a new country and I get a new series of banknotes, that should help me to know if those banknotes are good or not. Actually, the first banknote I showed you, that's the Hungarian one, and it's an original one. And it was that one because my time is over. If you have later questions, you can find us outside. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very, very good conference.
Thank you, Marna. Excellent. And next up, we have JJ with CPS. Round of applause. There we go. There you go.
Thanks, Sean. I know everyone wants to get to lunch, so I will be as quick as I can. So, choosing the right technology path. The world is uncertain at the moment. We've got trade tariffs and geopolitical changes. We've got cash volumes changing constantly. CITs are combining to stay competitive. There's the climate change and green agenda. Central banks are both insourcing and outsourcing. There's a rise in AI, but what we always forget to do is focus on the I, which is the intelligence and not the artificial side. And then we're more cost conscious than we've ever been. We need to be efficiency driven. We're requiring flexible processes and machines. But don't take my word for it.
The US has dominated the global economy for decades, but the world is fractured by geopolitical tensions and globalization is facing a backlash. Is the economic order changing? And globalization, the free flow of trade with the US at the helm, that's the economic order the world has known for decades. Today, though, the disintegration of the rules-based world order is evident for all to see. Countries are becoming more inward-looking, regulatory fences have been erected, the World Trade Organization is in limbo, nations are racing to build the industries of the future, and trade restrictions are increasingly being imposed. Now, the system that's governed the global economy since the Second World War is at a tipping point, now more than ever.
It's a big day. Should be fun. I don't know. You'll maybe find reasons why it's not, but I can't imagine because we have a lot of great things happening. It's been a very strong week and a very strong weekend. Before we begin, let me say a few words about the historic events that took place over the last few days.
Now, I've stopped it there because, like most of you, we don't know what he's going to say. We don't know what he's going to say today, we don't know what he's going to say tomorrow, and we certainly don't know what he's going to say in 2 weeks' time. But this isn't the only part of the uncertainty that we're facing. The industry's at a crossroads at the moment. We're still continuing to do the same thing. We're buying the same old types of machinery. We're having the same industry conversations week in, week out. And we've got an attitude of everything will be okay, rather than addressing what's going on around us. So, how has CPS evolved over the last few years? In 2023, we were at exactly the same crossroads. We could keep doing what we were doing, or we could strive for something different and something new. So we went with the something new. We made significant investment into smaller and more efficient machines, and that are a lot more sustainable. We focused on using data to increase efficiencies, so introduced our intelligent machines to the market. We introduced centralized control to make our machines even more intelligent, and something that we will talk about in a minute. But also we focused on the green agenda. We invested in machines with significantly lower carbon footprint, lower operating costs over the lifespan, and then cheaper to manufacture, cheaper to diagnose, and cheaper to fix. But how do we do this? We did this by looking at our own data. And there's a few things here that are going to stand out. On the left is the traditional large high-speed sorter. On the right is two of our V-series. They're compact high-speed sorters. And the things that are going to stand out to you guys here, look at the yearly power consumption. It's down by almost 2/3. 6,600 kilowatt hours versus 18,000. Look at the CO2 to manufacture, almost 8 tons less. But the one that you really should focus on is the operating cost. It's almost $9 savings per million banknotes that you're sorting, just down to the environmental impact and the power usages. So this is where we are as a business now. So let's have a look at some of these products. On the left, you've got our V-Series, on the right, our X-Range. Our V-Series, and this is a central bank version that I've got up here, is equipped with an online shredder, which is a modular upgrade that's available on site, has an independent counting center, a track and trace functionality, dual key interlocks, and audit logs. It's also got level 3 authentication sensors, additional module upgrade again. There's a CEDI interface, an audit log, and configurable to any sensor size that you may have. But most importantly again, it's intelligent. We can extract data from the machine, we can connect to CPS centralized control, we can link to any customer system, and we're able to work with note tracking and vault management systems such as ECM ISA. And we can input into AI. Our X-Range, we've got the traditional 2+1 counter and sorter, we've got a 21 pocket X-Range up there, and then we've got our automated X-Range with strapping, bundling and shrink wrapping that we've been demonstrating across the globe this year. So please do come and ask me to see that. But how are we navigating the uncertain world? We've talked about our green focus, we've talked about our data strategy. We're investing in the next generation of technology. We're using data to not only identify issues, but also solve them. One of the challenges that we face when we're using data is that we're using the data to back up an opinion we've already have. Confirmation bias at its finest. We're not doing that. We're using the data to inform us of what the question is and then help us find the answer. We're also focusing on partnership, not just product. We work with your businesses to identify solutions to the challenges that you face. It's not just a one-size-fits-all product out the box. And also we're being green and efficient at the same time. So by embracing these 4 practices, we can come and help improve your business to become more efficient and lower your operating costs, which in a world of uncertainty and in a world where things can change at the blink of a button, that's the most important thing we want to do. I promised you I'd be a little bit quicker than my 10 minutes. I hope you guys go and enjoy lunch. But please do come and see us at booth 2. We're just opposite our friends at Delarue, and we can talk through some of these machines in more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JJ. All right, with that, it is about time to go to lunch. Before we do, just wanted to make a note. You saw Jean-Michel appear on the first panel today. We do have his book. He has a book for sale on Amazon. If you'd like to get it, feel free to take a look, ask him, ask any of us. It's about the evolution of money and payments, which is all the discussion of what we had talked about this morning. That said, it is lunchtime, and the lunch is graciously sponsored by Monnaie de Paris. To get there, you will go up the stairs, up either set of stairs in the lobby, have lunch, take an hour for lunch, and we'll start back here at 20 after, and we'll talk about the evolving phases of the CEDI through redesign and enhanced security features. So enjoy lunch.
In the calendar of Ghana, changing from pounds to CDs, a legacy that has kept us afloat. Economic independence, sovereignty and freedom, keep the city clean. Ghana city, 60 years at Pessoa. Let's say cheers. Let's celebrate. Let's jubilate, let's celebrate. CEDI
19th July 1965 CEDI as a Makudi Ghana. Don't banta banta. Could he see it? Could he see it?
The nation's pride, the power of the city. It's not just the paper, respect the value. When you say the city, the future is bright. As a toto, as a no, as a biso risie, as a riti iguano, munyete hunyo. The sunrise of say.